sometimes you're like, no, like when I first learned this, I'm like, dude, this is so out there. I just want to treat, back pain, shoulder pain, neck pain. Let's like all this stuff. But then you just see it. People just keep coming in with these things. And the constitutional type. And I'm like, yeah, this is what you are going to have happen if you are imbalanced.
Hello and welcome back to Just Follow Joy. My name's Ariana, not Joy, and I'm a human design guide and teacher. And I'm so stoked because today we are talking to someone who is so knowledgeable about what we're going to be talking about, which is traditional Chinese medicine. And that person is Dr. Adam Fuller. So, spoiler alert, Adam is my acupuncturist. That's how I met him, and that's how I knew that he would be perfect for the podcast. And we'd have a great conversation, which we did. I learned so much. And if you know nothing about Chinese medicine, which was me, I came in here completely blank, completely blank slate. This is going to be a really awesome conversation for you as well. So, a little bit about Adam. He has over 2 decades of experience in health and fitness, as well as both a master's and doctorate in acupuncture and oriental medicine, also known as traditional Chinese medicine or TCM, from Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. Adam's work integrates a variety of healing methods, including acupuncture, herbal medicine, postural alignment, nutrition, functional medicine, all in order to provide relaxation, pain relief, and enhance athletic performance and overall wellness, really whatever you're looking for. He also serves as a therapeutic lifestyle advisor at Whitgrove Bariatric Center at Scripps Hospital in La Jolla, California, besides running his own clinic in San Diego. So as you can probably tell, Adam is a very holistic healer, and we talk a lot about that in this episode. We talk about healing the whole person, the mind-body connection, and how traditional Chinese medicine can play into all of this and why it's so helpful to know and use if you can. If you can find a provider for that, maybe it's Adam. So we're going to dive into that in just a minute. But before we do, I just want to remind you that if you like the Just Follow Joy podcast, if you love the Just Follow Joy podcast, and you have not yet subscribed and left a like for this video on YouTube, if you could do that, that would be amazing. It would get this in front of all the people who would also like, love, and learn from it. And if you're listening on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, if you could leave a 5-star review there as well, that would be really, really helpful. But that's enough from me. So let's dive in and hear from Adam. All right. Adam, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm so excited to talk about what we're going to talk about because I know like nothing about traditional Chinese medicine. I know tiny tidbits that you have told me off the cuff. Everyone listening, Adam is so incredibly knowledgeable about this. When I first met him, I was like, oh, he's got to be a 5-1 profile. He's got, because the one line is like the investigator. It's getting deep into stuff. It's knowing systems so deeply. But no, you're a 3-6 profile. You just know your shit really well. So we are talking about TCM and acupuncture and all the cool things that can go along with this. And I want to know I know a little bit about this, but how did you originally get into TCM? Like what brought you there?
Well, back in my 20s, I was a triathlete and marathon runner. And at that point in my life, I was on track to go to physical therapy school. I've always been interested in the body and physiology, kinesiology. Got injured before a big race. And so I was really desperate. I was doing a lot of different modalities. Nothing was really, truly getting me there. And my girlfriend at the time, now wife, said, you probably should go to my acupuncturist. And as a lot of people who see me, I'm usually the last resort, come for acupuncture. So I went in there desperate. And in one treatment, the acupuncturist made everything better. And I got to run the race. And everything else hurt in my body in the race, except for what she worked on. So I remember coming back, flying back across country and thinking, maybe I shouldn't go down the physical therapy route. Maybe I can go into sports medicine acupuncture. And doing some research and not trying to reinvent the wheel, there was a gentleman down here in San Diego who created it. And we moved down and went to school, and the rest is history. And so that's how I got into Chinese medicine. And I was really focused on pretty much being sports medicine, injury, pain. And then once I got to school and learned everything about Chinese medicine, I realized there's a whole nother world um, that encompasses acupuncture uh, and all the different parts that come with that. So that's
Hmm.
how I got into it.
Do you mind if I ask you what the injuries were?
It was a low back and calf injury
Mm.
that just would not let up, and I would, get some relief and be able to run. And if I tried to go past a certain mileage or a certain intensity, it would just pull up on me, grip up on me, and I just couldn't work past that. And yeah, and now, knowing what I know, it could have been a lot easier fix if I knew more about acupuncture and Chinese medicine and how the channels, the meridians work with the fascia in the body. Um, it's it's a really fun, interesting way that explains a lot and how to treat injuries that I've
Hmm.
learned over the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's such a cool little secret weapon. And I don't know why I've never really thought about, I mean, obviously everyone listening, you can use acupuncture for so many different things. It's not just sports medicine. This is just something that Adam is really good with and knows a lot about. But I don't know why I've never really thought of that, right? Like I've never thought of acupuncture and TCM specifically with sports stuff. So when you started diving down this rabbit hole, and you started learning all about this. Like we're going to get into like actually what the basics of it are for anybody who's brand new like I am. But when you started getting into this and you're saying like there was this whole new world, like what really stuck out to you about this approach that you didn't really see in allopathic medicine or you weren't seeing in like the physical therapy stuff that you were looking into before?
Well, again, there's some of these words that I learned are sort of cliche-ish. That it's the whole body approach, the holistic medicine approach, the whole person, and that really, I really realized how true that was. That an injury could be a physical knee injury, a shoulder, low back injury, but there's an emotional component to it. Not saying that the emotional component caused the injury, but how you recover from that. And if you can work on that level with people, they're going to recover faster. And so learning the other parts of a person's lifestyle that contributed to that injury, to how they're recovering, to their emotional makeup is really important. It makes sense. And I learned that transferred to a lot of things. So with sickness, that, we usually get sick when we're stressed, when we don't eat how we normally should. We don't get enough sleep. That is going to make us immune compromised. And I can see it. We don't just get sick because we came in contact with something. I learned that, you know, viruses and bacteria are all around us all the time. And when we're clicking and we're exercising, we're staying hydrated, we're moving our body appropriately, getting good recovery and sleep, you're not going to get sick. And so I saw that with injuries, and I saw people who are healthy per se. They're exercising all the time. They're doing this, but they were missing the sleep component. They were getting 6 hours of sleep. They, pot of coffee in the morning to crank their workout. They're so amped up. Pot of coffee in the afternoon, then a bottle of wine so they can get to sleep. That they're just
Stop calling
grinding.
me
But you
out.
look at them,
God, okay.
yeah, you see this and you're like, wait a minute, there's no recovery here. And and they're dialed in on their diet. Or another thing is that people are working out a lot and they sleep, but they're not dialed in on their diet, and you can see how this plays out in their imbalances. And so that it just gave me, I always had an idea that there was a bigger picture to just the body, and it's not just a soft tissue injury or this and that. There are other things that can contribute to it. So people are going to heal faster, more efficiently. There's going to be a more effective way to treat this person, that, again, this injury doesn't pop up again. We see a lot. I see a lot of reoccurring injuries coming from people. We have our imbalances and we break down in predictable ways if we don't correct those. And that takes a holistic approach to their lifestyle.
Yeah. And then I mean, probably get into like emotional aspects of these things too. But yeah, you can have all this stuff dialed in, but then like what's your thinking like? Where's your focus? How are your emotions doing? And how do you deal with those on a regular basis? And the other thing I wanted to say too, Adam and I were just talking about this before we were recording, that whole thing about like past experiences playing into this and the emotions playing into it, and the emotion not necessarily being the reason for the injury itself, but definitely applying in some ways. So the last time, I think it was the last time I saw you, you put something, because I have been going to see Adam for a problem with my lower back, and you put a pin into my lower back, and I was immediately like fear, scare, much scare. And I like kind of, I didn't tense up, but it felt very like familiar fear too. And you were like, "Do you need me to take this out?" And I was like, "No, no, no, no. It's fine. It's fine. I'm the daughter of an immigrant. I'm tough. I can make it through." But eventually I start crying because it was like so scary. And so Adam kindly pulled it out, and I said, "I'm sorry, I just slid backwards into a tree one time when I was like 9, and I slammed my lower back. And ever since I've been really afraid." And I was like, "Shit, I didn't even know that I remembered that. Like, that's insane." And so it is really this whole body thing. Your experiences play into this. Adam is a 3-6 profile built so much on experience. So he knows this very well. And it's just, yeah, it's fascinating. The value we get from this holistic approach, which I know I'm not saying anything new here, but just speaking from experience, it's so
To
interesting.
go on more about your experience is to give it a little taste, and we can get this could probably be a good segue into how medicine works. Is the Chinese medicine kidneys, the channel, rule the low back. The main emotion when the kidneys might be imbalanced is fear. And so for me, putting the needle into your low back, not knowing your experience when you were 9, knowing that you just have a back problem. And so we were going through and I'm doing some other things. We had other needles in. It wasn't the first needle. We just had some other needles in. We're going there. And actually you did seize up. Your low back
Mm.
muscles totally spasmed.
Whoa.
And it was, yeah, it was like, yeah, because when I actually, yeah, it was there. So, that showed that it hit the fear. It hit the body had the psychosomatic reaction to, oh my God, this brought you back to a time that was stressful. And the whole fear of not knowing, how you were going to respond when you were 9 years old to this injury. So that is was really good information to find out that, okay, there is some sort of thing. You do have like some inflammation in your low back. There's nothing wrong. Like we would do a biopsy or something. They would probably find some sort of soft tissue uh, inflammation. But to go with that emotion, that's the stuff that I find so fascinating when we bring up these things, and people don't necessarily come forth with it in an initial evaluation, but through the things and when how they respond, they're like, oh, I did do this when X years ago or something like this. This brings up what they felt. And so that's the stuff that, wow, we can really work around and help support. And now I can help, build up your kidney energy a little bit and do these things that will help your low back respond and recover better. So it is pretty cool for me, not for your experience necessarily, but for me to, and you were able to finish the session. We did more things on that. You flipped over to the front side. We did some treatment and we were able to talk about a lot of things. So it wasn't a horrible, like, oh my God, now my back's really messed up. But no, it was a good thing to know and understand and for further treatments.
Yeah, no, Adam didn't wreck me, guys. But actually, that brings me back to that original injury that you had that sort of brought you to TCM. Looking back, do you see any emotional connections to that?
100%.
Mm.
So at that point, um, I was in probably my mid to late 20s, and I was a fitness director at a gym in Santa Barbara, running the whole program. And I was looking to go, what am I going to do after getting my bachelor's? What's my next step? And I know I wanted to go to grad school or figure something out. That was thinking about physical therapy school. I thought about public health, epidemiology. I was applying to some grad schools, doing all those sort of things and really trying to figure out, but nothing really was sticking. And so I'm like, I knew I've outgrown where I was as a fitness director at the gym for 6 years, and so I knew that there was a next step. I just didn't know what it was. So it was fearful. Like, am I going to move across country to go to grad school? Am I going to go to physical therapy school, move up to Washington, and then work in the basement of a hospital the rest of my life? Like you just don't know, which is perfectly fine. There's everyone goes through this at some point, but that does affect how you think and feel. And we know this from Western medicine. How you think and feel will produce certain hormones, certain chemicals in your body that's going to motivate you or stall you or do different things. And so that was part of it. And I was still doing all my training, doing really healthy things, but I wasn't nurturing that, or I was nurturing it, but I wasn't really putting into a conscious thought where I was in my life and how, that can be very stressful. What am I going to do the rest of my life? That's one of those age old questions. Like, well, and then in hindsight, I found the perfect job. I literally love being an acupuncturist. Everything that it worked out perfectly. I'm doing everything I want to do. I get to help people. I see a ton of people. I want to see more, all these things. I can do this all day. I get energized through helping and treating people, talking with them. I get to spend time with my patients. My scope of practice is massive as an acupuncturist. It's been great, and I'm gonna do this forever. And I look back, and I went through that. I got it. I got to experience it, and that's another thing too. As an acupuncturist, you get lucky is you get to experience what it's like to be a patient, what it's like to go through these things. Like, you're a brain surgeon, you don't necessarily have brain surgery to see what it's all about. So for me, I know what it's like to be a patient. I know what it's like to go through these things where it's the gray area of, is this more emotional, or is this a physical thing, or not understanding that connection? And for me, it's like, oh, I know what it's like, and so I try to explain to people. And when the patient gets a little bit more perspective that it's not just a low back injury or this and that hey, there's some other things that you can comfort yourself that if we dive into and learn more about yourself, pain will be reduced, if not go away. Once that clicked in, once I really saw that, I knew that acupuncture and Chinese medicine, working on all the different levels of a person's psyche or being, however you want to describe that, was a really solid medicine. And we only have about 5,000 years of anecdotal evidence of this stuff, so it's pretty cool stuff.
Pretty firm foundation to work off of.
Yeah, exactly. If it doesn't work after 5,000 years, then yeah,
might be time to pivot.
Yeah.
Rethink your strategy. Yeah, and I also have to say that I'm just geeking out from the human design perspective, hearing everything that you're saying. I'm like, wow, first off, what a manifesting generator success story. Like, this thing just kind of like found you in a way, and now you do what's energizing to you every single day. And then you have that 3-6 profile, being able to give to other people through what you've learned, and now being the role model of that. Like, Adam is stepping into the role model phase of his 6-line experience. He's stepping down off the roof soon, which is really cool. It actually coincides. We were talking about this with like some business ventures that he has going on. And then also, your sun gate in 59, which you talked about, which is like the intimacy, the honesty, the connection with other people, getting that all the time with your clients. Like, I'm telling you too, I can usually sense gate 59 in other people because it's a very unique energy. It's not like you feel like you know the person, but it's like, yeah, I do feel like I can let my walls down quite a bit, because I told you right away things that I'm just like, I have a really hard time forgiving people. And I'm like, I don't know where that came from, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all of these in your chart, me getting off topic, but I just think it's so fascinating. So, we've been talking about all of this stuff more on the surface level, but I'm really, really excited to just like understand what traditional Chinese medicine is about. Like, how does it work? What are the basics? Like, if somebody was coming to you and they're like, I don't know anything about this. What is this system? What would you tell them? I know that we've talked a little bit about organs and lines, and I know that elements play into it too, but yeah, explain it to me like I'm like maybe 5 years old, between 5 years old and 18 years old.
Sure. So you have 12 meridians or channels in your body. There's a few more, but the basics of it is there's 12. And each channel or meridian has an organ that it goes to, and they circulate throughout your body. So you have three channels on the outside of your arm, you have three channels on the inside of your arm, three channels on the outside of your leg, three channels on the inside of your leg, one going up the midline and one going up the spine. And there is a process of the energy and fluids, which we call chi is energy, and fluids we call blood. But the energy and fluids circulate through all those channels in the direct fashion, that's the same fashion, every 25 to 30 minutes. And so they're going through, and these channels they're not a tube. It's not a vessel. It's not like an artery or a vein, like this little tube that's on the outside of your arm that we put a needle into. It actually is a space. And so it goes all the way from the top part of the skin up here, all the way down. You got a fat layer, you got a muscle layer, you got your arteries and veins, all the way down to the bone. So that channel covers the space in depth. And the needle, so here's the channel, the needle will go down to certain depths to affect certain tissue. And that is what we're doing, is we're playing around and manipulating the energy and fluids that are circulating through the body. When we have pain, when we have dysfunction, when we have sickness, some sort of ailment, those channels either have a lack of energy or there's an obstruction, it's stuck, and there's an excess amount of energy and fluids. Easiest way to see it, you bump your elbow, got a big red swollen knot ball in your elbow. That's the excess of stuck energy of chi and blood, of energy and fluids that are swelling up in that channel. So we use needles to either put them on different channels as a magnet to pull that energy down and fluids down and recirculate, or we put them closer to the area and try to disperse the stagnation. We can do that with needles, we can do that with herbs, we can do that with topical things, different kinds of massage. All the different things will help manipulate those energy and fluids to reduce the inflammation, create more range of motion, decrease dysfunction, or improve function, I should say. So that's how that works. And then when we look at, so that's just more of like the injury side of things, or the channel theory. But some channels where people, let's just say someone's sick and their lungs, you have a cough, maybe congestion in the nose. We look at your lung function, large intestine function on those channels would be compromised. So what are we going to do to strengthen your lung and large intestine function? How do we get the mucus that's forming out of there? And so we have herbs, we have diet therapy, nutrition therapy, breathing exercises, and acupuncture. All these things will help drive this mucus and then strengthen your lung function so that you can breathe correctly, more efficiently, and not have the sickness. So again, we're just playing with energy, and there's the physical energy that we deal with body pain or injuries. There's the psycho-emotional energy. We're stressed, we're sad, we're fearful, we worry. Those also affect the channels. So let's go with what's probably the gallbladder function. So the gallbladder channel starts right here at the side of the head, zigzags on the side of the head, comes down over your shoulders, goes down your side of your body, down to the hips, down the IT band, down the side of your legs, all the way to your ring toe in Chinese medicine. So the gallbladder channel is one of the channels that's paired with the liver that deals with stress. And more importantly, the gallbladder deals with decision making, the courage to make decisions. So that's why they say someone has the gall to do something, is that they have the motivation to make decisions. And so a lot of points in our life, we have like, should I go for this job interview? Should I stay with this person? Should I, how do I approach this dilemma I have? A lot of us have indecision. So a lot of indecision shows there's a lot of gallbladder energy that's being taken by not making decisions. So I wish I could see what was going on in people's heads when they sprain their ankle. I mean, you roll your ankle out to the side, which is very common. Oh, I stepped off a curb wrong. I'm like, you were thinking about something I'm almost positive. I can't, we can't go these snapshots back and say like, what were you deciding between? What were you like sort of worried about? And sort of that thing. But the hip pain, the ankle sprains, side of the head, temple headaches. There's a more common headache. What is that? Neck and shoulder tightness, all that stuff. That's gallbladder channel. So you can just, and that's when I get part of these discussions is just opening up and so like, what are you deciding between? What are you thinking about? Do you have big decisions you have to make? That might be adding to some of the dysfunction. And then on a more medical side, it's explaining some of the fascia. So if you have a tight neck and shoulders, that can lead to tight hips, or tight hips can lead to tight outside of the legs and ankle function, and vice versa. So now you pull all this tightness in that fascia. Now you might have to move differently subconsciously, and now you're wearing down different tissue, and so then you're more predisposed to getting a certain injury. And so that works in all parts of the body just like that. And I've always found that fascinating, to almost where you're almost like, if we don't correct this, this is your potential issues here. This is what you're going to have as a reoccurring problem if we don't figure out how to navigate X, Y, and Z emotionally, psychologically. And we all have our constitutional types. There's 5 constitutional types. I can tell you, I'll talk about the cycle, and this is very general, but it's really fascinating stuff. And so because sometimes you're like, no, like when I first learned this, I'm like, dude, this is so out there. I just want to treat, back pain, shoulder pain, neck pain. Let's like all this stuff. But then you just see it. People just keep coming in with these things. And the constitutional type. And I'm like, yeah, this is what you are going to have happen if you are imbalanced.
Wait, sorry, before you go
Yes,
into the other stuff, just to clarify, so a constitutional type is connected to a certain organ, and it's like generally the kind of way that you'd show up in your body and the kinds of afflictions you'd have, but also the strengths that you'd have.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. These constitutions. You have your wood, liver, gallbladder. You have your heart, small intestine is your fire. Your spleen and stomach is your earth. Your long and large intestine is your metal or minerals. And then your kidney and bladder are your water. And those are the 5 elements that we have. There's a whole style of acupuncture called 5-element acupuncture that really just deals with this whole idea of which is fascinating. It's a very one of the original styles of acupuncture because it was all observation based, smells, colors, all these things that people used back really early on, and it's still around and it's still fascinating because you could still really lean on that to find, oh yeah, this person likes this taste, and this person comes in and they're wearing all black and they're cold all the time, and all these things. You're like, of course they have low back and knee pain because they're kidney water patients, and it's just like, and sometimes I would never diagnose somebody on what they're wearing by any means, but it throws that thing and you're like, of course, they come in with this and this, and they all these things, and yeah, they have a salt craving too, of course, kidney water again. It's like and that's what also is so fun because I giggle to myself sometimes, like how it can be. And so again, I don't want to think like your constitution types are always a bad thing. There's always these good things that come in with that. And it's just when we become imbalanced, there's a predictable way that our body sort of breaks down or what will affect it on that front. So we'll start with the liver. The liver channel is, or the wood is your liver and gallbladder. And this would be your type A person, regimen, very strong, thin and wiry. Could be a lot of my lawyers are this. They're like, people who are regimen that you can count on and very dependent, very rigid and strong and dependable. So great things. A lot of times our great things, our success can often lead over into sort of our weaknesses, being inflexible, adaptable, if things aren't going your way, the control issues, all those things. So that idea of that wood, you're that palm tree in the storm, and it bends back, but it never breaks, and you can come back. So you have that strength, but it's really hard sometimes to be flexible and adaptable, to go with the flow and relax. And then the liver and gallbladder, they deal with what we call the sinews. So they're dealing with the tendons, sometimes the ligaments. So these people, they're going to be tighter in their body. They're strong, but they're going to be tighter. So they get the pulls in the muscles. They get the joint pain because they're super strong, but sometimes they lack the flexibility physically and mentally, and they're rigid on that. And so getting them to in a lifestyle where they can relax, so they can breathe more downtime. So my classic liver person would be, they're going to go do their CrossFit workout in the morning. And then I tell them, hey, you need to do like less stuff, like maybe get into yoga, some, Pilates or breathing things. They're like, oh, I got into yoga. And like, oh, great. Which one? They're like, oh, it's the 110-degree one. And I sit there and you go for an hour and I sweat like 10 gallons and I do all this stuff. And it's like, I was like, you needed the Kundalini yoga where you're sitting there and you're focusing on your breath to relax, but that's that liver person. That's the they're just so intense and all that. And it's like just another workout for them because they just feed off that. And then they're like, oh, I got a massage. And what'd you get? Oh, I got the deepest tissue massage. They went in there and they were just like, it was so great, but I couldn't move, but now I feel like they just want like that. It's just that intensity on that front. And so, those are the things that I'm like, okay, well, we try to manage and balance out as much as possible for those kind of people. And again, we also have all different, like people get rigid in their thoughts. They don't have to be a wood type. Everyone has these moments in certain parts of their life where they can be different constitutions. However, overall, you generally have one or two, and when in balance, you're going to break down in one of those couple ways. But, a liver person can have bad lung function when they get sick. So it's not like you're only going to get these injuries or ailments.
Yeah.
Probably the other one I deal with the most would be the spleen stomach with the earth. And in Chinese medicine, that's your digestive system. And what the spleen sort of does is it has a little different function than in Western medicine. But in the spleen, the Chinese spleen, it deals with, one is extracting first the nutrients you get from food. So if you're eating good food, you eat that orange, it's going to extract the vitamin C. And then it sends it up to your brain for energy. If you're not eating good food that's nutrient dense, or you're worried, the motion with the spleen is worry, so overthinking, worrying a lot, you will decrease your digestive function. So then that vitamin C energy doesn't go up to the brain fog. See a lot of it and things like that, and that's a digestive function in Chinese medicine. So people who have the brain fog, it also sends that vitamin C, that energy, out to the muscles. So someone who has poor spleen function, is worried a lot, not eating great, their muscles will feel heavy, will be like lethargic. So they tend to put on weight easy. It's just harder. Sometimes you just feel like, oh, got another workout, or I'm just struggling. I just feel so heavy. That's one of the feelings. So those, the digestion, the brain fog, the muscle function, and then for women, the spleen is what is the start of building blood. And so for menstruation is really important. So if your spleen's not strong, you will tend to, and you can't create the blood, you'll have maybe light periods. You might have periods that come every 2 weeks, all these things that go with it. And then we start to talk with the patients and it's like, oh yeah, I get bloated really quick. And so that, and then I got brain fog, and yeah, my periods come every 2 weeks. I'm tired. That is just spleen. And we have herbs, and we have the nutritional therapy, and we have the acupuncture points, and we have all these things that help build the spleen function. Then we talk about, what are you worried about? What do you overthink about? What are the things that you worry that you're spending too much time, like just racing mind, or you wake up in the middle of the night and all of a sudden, poof, you're up and you're sort of thing. So those are like the spleen and liver are the two probably most common things I see in practice, for a variety of things. But again, there's plenty of other ones with the lung and large intestine, which would be more immune system. So someone who would get sick a lot, if you find yourself getting sick, that's going to be along the metal organ, the breathing. So that emotion would be grief. and sadness. Someone who tends to is grieving something or is like inappropriately grieving per se. Not, that's why what happens is the lung and large intestine come up to the nose function. That's why when we're sad and we cry, we sniffle a lot. It's all the energies coming up here and get stuck, or we get breathless. We
Mm.
go, that sort of idea is just that chi and the energy of the lung and large intestine being affected. The kidneys would be fear, and so that goes, and the kidneys are in part of sort of your aging process. They're in charge of bones, hearing, your low back and knees, some skin and head hair. So anti-aging is really about taking care of your kidneys. And the last one would be heart. And heart is one that I find I don't get a lot of true heart constitution people for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. It's just probably something I attract on that level. But the heart would be like inappropriate joy. And so people who talk and are just like really like up in a very severe heart issue in Chinese medicine, that would be the mental illnesses on that front. But it's the louder inappropriate person. Sometimes they laugh inappropriately at things because they're just unsettled. That would be hard. But it's also what that when I do have someone with a heart issue, more I see is the inability to receive joy, the inability
Mm.
to be happy, to experience fun or enjoyment. That would be the heart function on that one. Easier to find, but I just don't see a lot of that right now. Those are sort of the constitutions there. We all fall into one or maybe two of those. And again, we throughout the seasons, throughout the years of our lives, what's going on, we can sort of move into a little bit of one and with whatever we're dealing with. We'll get out of balance and we might go down that road. But usually the constitutions, when you get in balance, your X, Y, or Z is going to happen to you.
Hmm. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of human design in that way, where like all of this stuff is what you carry with you all the time and is like you on a consistent, regular basis. But that doesn't mean that we don't experience the other energies of the human design chart, just like in astrology, too. Like you could be you're a Virgo, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're Virgo sun, but like when we're going through Aries season, you're going to be experiencing the sun in Aries and thus the energy of that.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll always remain, a Virgo. And so have that consistently with you. And in human design, it's like when we're going through a transit, like my sun gate is in 32, but when the sun is in 47, I'm going to probably experience the energies of, oppression or insight or whatever, because we all have these energies in us just in different amounts and in different combinations. And it's all like, they're also all like expressions of the human experience. It's just which ones are at the forefront for us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
funny to me when people are like, well, you said that I'm at this, but I feel different sometimes. I'm like, yeah, you're literally supposed to. And also with
Yeah,
this,
exactly.
with Chinese medicine, all these things that the organs are connected to, I think anyone can see that anybody can have issues with flexibility or inflexibility, whether that's being way too flexible and not really standing up for yourself or not being flexible enough. Everyone deals with fear or sadness or grief, confusion, maybe sometimes not being able to accept joy. So that's the first thing that I noticed. But the second thing is it was so funny because when you were talking about certain things, I'm like, oh my God, I have that. Do I should I be dealing with
Yeah.
that? Should I mention that to you next time? And I was also thinking like, I've had for everyone listening, like maybe I'll put an image of this if I really want to gross you out, but my legs have been having like the worst, weirdest like rash or eczema. Like Adam and I have looked at this. We're still trying to figure it out. But when you were saying that whole thing about someone steps off a curb and they twist their ankle and you're like, what was going on in your mind? I've been trying so hard to catch myself. Like when my legs really itch, I'm like, wait, what am I thinking about right now? Like,
Mm-hmm.
is there
Yeah.
something that's bringing this up? I'll let you know when I realize what it is. I haven't really picked up on it yet. I have a feeling it has to do with like stress or my business or something like that because
Sure.
the brain fog kind of also comes up when I've noticed like really worrying a lot or really just overthinking things. And yeah, but anyway.
And that's what, like in a bigger thing, that's what I found, and I've come to this realization that this is all just energy. Like we all know that, but sometimes we can't really explain it. And I don't know if I'm going to explain it that well, but it's like, well, there's energy in your soft tissues, and you can have an injury there, which is either excess or a lack of energy that's going through that caused your injury. But what you're thinking about, worry about something in the future that may or may not happen, or you're depressed about something in the past that happens that, and either you're not thinking about it, which requires energy to stuff it somewhere deep down, in your body, or you're expressing it. But like all it is like it's energy. You're whether it's psycho emotional, it's emotional, it's physical, energy. It's energy, energy, energy. And so that's what I do. And that's part of my big thing is I have to be healthy. I have to be an example. I have to come with the thunder and be healthy for my patient. It's like that's the thing because I am putting a needle in you and I'm putting my energy into that to say, hey, I need to pull some of this energy down in this channel so you get better, or I need to disperse it from this channel. And so it's not just like mechanical needle goes in. Anybody can throw a needle. I can teach you in 5 minutes, maybe not easily, but like you could figure out how to put a needle in you. But with not thinking, with not knowing what you're trying to do, what your intention is, that's the thing. And so that's the energy I try to bring and support people and let them either if they need to get rid of energy or if I need to, motivate them to start to think about something or do a different exercise. I need to just turn around what the imbalance is. And again, it's just manipulating the energy. And the herbs do that, the needles do it, our talk, our discussions do that, your exercise, your sleep. Sleep is energy. Some things are restoring, but there's a lot of active stuff going on in sleep that you definitely need that if you don't have it, sleep might actually be more important than diet. Those two are really close. And whatever study I read and which one I read, one goes up a little higher, one goes up there. But sleep and what we're putting into our bodies are the two most important things that affect pretty much everything. And it's fascinating. So like there's a lot of energy in sleep that we need to get that will clear our minds, that will recover our bodies, that just set that even digestively we pull glucose out of our bloodstream and store it in our muscles. Part of the whole blood sugar imbalance issues is getting good sleep. A lot of my practice with my patients is getting to those areas and really finding like to one, get you out of imbalance by improving some of those, but also to stay out of those issues. And this is how we get to a point where if we can get the basic platform down of like your recovery, of your movement, of your thoughts, of your nutrition and all that, that becomes the platform for emotional and spiritual growth. Because we've all had those moments where, we exercise, we got a good night's sleep, we ate a good breakfast, whatever, and all that. And things are clicking, man. The planets are aligned. You could feel like you can do anything. Someone can cut you off. Someone can say something, whatever. You're like, hey, you got all the tolerance and patience in the world. It doesn't bother you. And you just feeling like and you almost feel like your thoughts are clear and like things happen and all that. Like that's real. That, we call it in the zone or in these things. They talk about in sports all the time where it's like, a basketball player looks like he's throwing a basketball into the ocean. Everything he throws up or she throws up goes in. It's like it's just amazing. And then there's some days where you're playing the exact same sport, the exact same day at work, and you're just like, oh my god, I can't think. I have no motivation. I'm doing the same thing I did every day, and it's just like it's not there sometimes. So there's this idea that if we do the basic things and we really stay on that, those will allow us to have, again, a higher vibration, a higher thing. But without that platform, without that foundation, I just think that again, you're not going to be able to reach your potential. And some of my patients, I have these conversations directly like that, and some really aren't into it. They're like, you know what, just get rid of my back pain. We're cool. I don't need to
Just stick a
go
needle
into
in me.
that world. Yeah, exactly. I want to be able to bend over and squat. So just let's get rid of this. But yeah, and again, I'm doing that and I'm opening that up and doing that so it allows them to. But if they're, I look at it too, is they're able to bend over and squat and they're happy, they're going to be closer to reaching their highest potential and they don't have to worry about their pain.
Yeah. So there was a lot in what you just said that I was like, oh, that's so good. The first thing is that Ra Uru, who founded Human Design, he said that food is the most dense form of conditioning, which is like basically just one of the most important inputs, just different language. And so eating what feels right to you, eating in a way that feels really aligned in human design that, goes along with what we call your determination or your digestion type is really important. And also anyone listening, I know that I've said that digestion is kind of a more advanced thing, but it's like your strategy and authority, which are very basic to your design, will, if you listen to it, naturally guide you towards the right things to eat and what feel good and what feels supportive. And then the other thing I was going to say is, oh my God, sleep. Like there's a reason Ariana Huffington wrote a book about sleep and how important it is. And I just cannot believe that people don't see that. I mean, maybe it's because for me, I cannot function if I don't get enough sleep. And I've had sleep apnea for my whole life, hopefully trying to get that deviated septum fixed. But I know how powerful and how helpful sleep is in getting you all aligned. I'm a mess. I'm a
Well, just
wreck
just
without
just
it.
think about it. Like, we're the only species that doesn't sleep when we're tired. Go watch a dog. If it's not walking or eating, it's sleeping. Like all animals just they sleep. And they have really intense like bursts of energy sometimes, or when they have to go find food or get away from survival. It's very obviously very primitive and a very like basic way of life, but we're the only species that cracks ourselves out on every stimulus to be able to do more and more every day. And so yeah, it is fascinating like how important that is to get. And if you're not getting it, and people are like, oh yeah, I'm good with about 6 hours, I'm like, you might be, but you can do anything for a limited amount of time. But if you're playing stuff for the long run, longevity game or quality of life, you're gonna burn out pretty quick. And things too is like what I always appreciate about Chinese medicine, and I'm actually really big on this with my patients, is doing things seasonally. A big part of Chinese medicine is like, yeah, we're here. We're just like every other plant, every other species on this earth. We are here to coexist with nature and the rest of everything around us. Every plant and animal is just trying to be like, stay dry, get some water, get some food, get some sunlight, do whatever they got to do. And it's like, that's the same thing. We just don't, in our minds, we're so like, oh, what's the greatest new supplement? What's the greatest, all these things that the basics aren't things. So Chinese medicine explains that we should eat with the seasons. Warming foods like soups and stews right now, everything cooked in wintertime, especially today we actually having weather in San Diego and stuff like that. It's like a good warm soup. We shouldn't go out and have a smoothie right now. Like cold food. There's actually certain restaurants in China that one restaurant like specializes in like duck and game and lamb and stuff. A lot of warming foods. And it's only open in the wintertime because that's what you need. And you would not eat those kind of foods cooked and prepared how they are in the summertime. That's too much heat. And in the summer, it's the salads and the colder things, more refreshing. Get those things on that, so you can cool yourself down with our hot summers. And there's a reason why there's foods that are grown certain times of the year. Like I'm getting all fired up because I'm a huge asparagus fan, and this is the only time of year is like in the spring when the asparagus is around, and I love it. And so, but I do not eat asparagus like any other time.
Sorry,
It just
I
does not
don't
taste.
think I've ever heard. I'm a huge asparagus fan.
I
I mean, I
am.
like it
I get
too,
so,
but
and that's the thing is like I get so excited about because this is like you have it in the spring, and then it's like right when you get sick of it, you move into the summer, you're not having it anymore. And so that's another thing. Like, that should be with your workout. That should be with your thing. Like coexisting with nature and how the rhythms are. We should be sleeping more in the wintertime. In the summer, yeah, you can crank it a little more. There's more energy in the earth to do that sort of thing. So just learning how to coexist and stay cool when it's warm, stay warm when it's cool, doing different things. If you do that through the seasons, it also, even with your workouts or whatever, it doesn't get monotonous. We're the only do the same thing every day all year long. And I do think that eventually runs us into the ground, demotivates us, um, gets us out of balance when we're trying to do things like eating improperly or really stressful workouts all the time in the winter. It's just the energy is not there for certain things at certain times. So I really like that aspect.
It's also very manifesting generator. Doing the same thing all the time will kill you because you're here to
Yep.
do so many different things and try so many different things. It makes a lot of sense. I kind of want to go back to something you said earlier about like having this foundation for yourself. I touched on it a little bit with like the kinds of foods you eat and stuff that you're designed for, but this is the same. Like I see this with the archetypes of the constitutions and then the archetypes that you'll find in human design. It's like when you know what you're built for, in really human design is just a reminder of that because it's saying like,
Hmm.
hey, this stuff is going to feel good naturally anyway. If you just listen to your intuition and you just trust yourself and you let go of all the shit people have told you you are supposed to be or you have to be. The idea is that when you know that and you live that, it's like you can open yourself up to all this incredible growth. Like this is where the potential lives, right? Because we all have it. We just all have different ways of accessing it. And we see this sort of in Chinese medicine. We see this in human design. And it's just fascinating. And I love it. And I think this stuff, knowing this more of this stuff about ourselves, it simplifies things. And I'm all about, as much as I love knowing everything about something, I'm all about getting to the core and the foundation and making it simpler in that way.
Exactly. And the
Yeah.
thing is the connection. So I'm a spleen earth constitution.
Hmm.
And one of the things is I'm self-sacrificing. Okay. So I do a lot of, which is good. Is like I take care of a lot of other people that does that. And then, but again, my strength in being helping everybody else, I can over deliver more time, not take care of myself, which is you explained in my human design reading that I need to listen to my sacral, is that or sacral,
Sacral response.
sacral, yeah,
Yeah.
and listen to that because I know that when I'm like, oh, I'm doing something, I'm helping someone else out and doing something like that's it's good, but I need to know that I need to. I still have to get my workout in today, and if I do this, it's gonna, I do that, and so knowing, and we came to the conclusion that if it's not a hell yes, it's a fuck no, and
Yep.
so that was like a big thing for me, and that just shows that if I keep doing that for other people, I'm going to deplete my spleen, stomach, earth energy. So then I'm going to get the brain fog. I'm not going to have the energy to work out. I'm not going to be able to do all these things that keep me at my top level. And so listening to myself, putting myself in doing what I need to do first. And again, so there's a reminder that you said that is just focusing on this is how you're structured and this is how you perform at your best and ultimately you're happiest if you want to use that word, but just when you feel great and then I can help everybody as long as I get those things done. And so that's why I find all the different things that you and I have discussed to be so like, wow, this through all different paradigms, this is just showing me the same thing.
Yeah, isn't it so
And it's
cool?
like,
And yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I've just been
no,
listening to
no.
this and I'm like, it's so fascinating too, because like, I mean, gate 59 is a Virgo gate, and that's your sun gate, and it's but Virgo is also the healer and the caretaker. Um, it rules the sixth house in astrology, which is about like taking care of your body, the body overall, like your daily activities, like all that stuff that you're really interested in. It's like so very Virgo and so very sixth house. And then how this also connects to your channel 59.6, which is about like really connecting with other people, but like having to make sure that it's the right people for you. And your sacral response shows you that, and taking time to make sure that this is the right place to put it. And then also like, you're a Virgo, but then you're also like Earth constitution. And it's so fascinating. And I absolutely love all of it.
Hmm.
Um, and so this has been such a great talk. We could talk, I'm sure, for hours more about this.
Sure,
Maybe
sure,
we'll
yeah.
go into even more stuff at another time. But I want to kind of wrap this up with a few more questions. And the first one is, we've talked a lot about the cool stuff that you've experienced with this personally, which is great because you are the 3/6 profile. We do want to hear about your life experience with this. But do you have like oh, and this is also just for me because I find this interesting. Do you have a particularly wild story or just like a story that you're really proud of where you used acupuncture or TCM to heal someone or help them heal something?
I have a lot of them, but I would say the two most interesting. So one of the things I still get excited. I've been doing this for 15 years now. Um, is people come in. I've had this pain for X amount of time. Sometimes 6 months. Sometimes doctors have helped me this and that. And no one's been able to help me get better and all that. And a couple needles, and they're able to move their arm. And they're like, "Oh my god, I haven't been able to do that." So I get that all the time. And I really find that super exciting. And I'm still baffled that I can put 3 needles in their ankle for their shoulder and they can move it. And it's like, that's it. And they're like, yeah, I'm like, this is so cool. But I going back to the top of my head, one patient, she actually unfortunately had a miscarriage and they
Mm.
did a DNC and she was having all this anxiety afterwards. And there's a syndrome, it's called running piglet syndrome in Chinese medicine. That sounds really weird, but it's sort of this energy and feeling that starts in your lower abdomen, and it's like this tension or that runs up into your throat that just feels like anxiety just coming up, this surge of energy coming up. And I've only read about it in my studies or in school, and I was seeing her pulse, and she was telling me all the things that are going on. She can't sleep. She's having all these problems. Can't keep anything down when she eats. I'm all, yeah, something going on down where you had the surgery and all that stuff and all the procedure. I'm all, you need to go back to your doctor. I would really go back to your doctor and see. She goes back to her doctor, and they weren't able to. There was still some of the placenta. There's some of tissue still left in her, and her body was responding. And they went in and they removed the rest of it, and she got better. And she told all her friends, and like all these people started coming to me on that front. And yeah, it was like I became like a gynecologist like overnight on with acupuncture and stuff like that. But no, that was a really because that was something that hey, that wasn't going to go away for a while, and that would have been overlooked and just not really like, hey, you're just probably emotional, or you're just probably, you'll get better. It takes time. Your hormones or recalibrating, all those sort of things. Another one was really healthy patient. She is a long distance runner, like trail running, all this stuff, rock climber, sort of a badass woman. And she was having all this again anxiety, but she was having some chest pain stuff and doing things, and super thin and everything. So you're not thinking heart attack, definitely. But I felt her pulse, and her pulse was, we call it an irregularly irregular pulse. So it would bump, 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 bump. There was no rhythm to it. And I'm like, that's not a good sign. And especially with what you're telling me, we treated her and stuff, and she was fine. She was doing okay and all this stuff, but she little shortness of breath and things like that. I'm like, hey, go to the doctor. You got something going on, because I'm feeling this heart pulse. So you're not like this. I can see because you are a kidney imbalance, and sometimes that will affect the heart. In Chinese medicine, so I'm like, go check. And she goes, and they're like, you're going to the hospital right now, and she was having a heart attack. And so those two things, and so she has a stint in there now and all that stuff. And like you look at her, and you're like, she is not heart attack. And so those two things is like, whoa, like that was amazing stuff. Um, Again, I get obviously I call it more subclinical, because like someone comes with knee pain, they're not going to necessarily die from that. But those two things really changed those women's lives. And I felt like, wow, I do have a lot of abilities here to make people healthier, happier, and then ultimately like save people's lives. And yes, it could be a slow, steady, like getting them to deal with their stress, to, over time to figure out how to process things, then to, oh, you need to go get your heart checked out and stuff like that. And so those are probably my two most fascinating stories that came out of nowhere.
That's
Um,
insane with the heart attack one, though.
yeah,
That's not
yeah,
what I thought I mean, yeah, you got a little bit of a spoiler at the beginning, but
hmm,
that's nuts.
yeah.
Whoa. That is so cool.
So
No wonder you love what you
yeah,
do.
yeah. And I get, yeah, everyone's different, and even my patients from week to week are different. Same thing. Last Tuesday this was going on in your life, and then this Tuesday, it's totally different. So even though you have the same shoulder pain, doesn't mean that you're gonna have the same energy. You could have not slept the night before, or you could have been, something at work happens, So you're gonna respond differently. So I might have to change. I don't do the same needles all the time. I don't needle because I'm treating you. I'm treating where you are at that point now, and that makes my job really fun and exciting.
Well, this has been awesome. And I have one question that I have been forgetting to ask my guests for a while now, but what's one thing that's bringing you so much joy? And it can be literally anything. Like it doesn't have to do with work if that's what the answer is. I've gotten answers that run the gamut.
This actually is because I'm doing a big transition in work right now in my professional life. So that's probably the what's going to bring me so much joy is that I'm attempting and doing is I'm actually going to start treating how the medicine was meant to be treated. And so really quickly to go through this is that in a lot of Asian countries and throughout history, people and in all our research studies, anything that proves acupuncture and its effectiveness, you look at the study design. This person with low back pain came 3 times a week for 3 weeks, cured their back pain better than medication, better than just PT, together with PT, better, together with medication, much better. All these things that you see people a lot in other countries. People in Asian countries, they go get acupuncture 3 to 4 days a week. It's not something like here. Here, it's one day a week or once every 2 weeks. We put into here in acupuncture is put into the Western model of treatment. And now I'm moving to a place where I'm moving to seeing my patients 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week. We're really, and change is happening so much more quickly that they're getting better, that they're moving through stuff, and that the tissue responds, their emotions respond, and it's really exciting to actually practice the medicine and how it's researched and how it was intended to be practiced and not put into the Western model of once in a while, because that takes a lot of time and that often can be ineffective where people get burned out like, hey, I haven't done anything, you haven't seen a lot of change in a month. I've come here 4 times, and like you can definitely get some work, but these things take time. But if you do that, 8 times, it's gonna be so much better. And so I'm doing that with people, and it's been so much fun. So like, wow, I really see the powers of this, and I see people responding so much better, and they're so much happier. We build on the success in a shorter amount of time that we're getting through these injuries or ailments uh, way more quickly than previously. So I'm really excited to actually treat how use the medicine and how it was intended, and that's super exciting. And for as far as I know, not much of like many people are doing that kind of medicine just because of how our society works and how the medicine works in the United States in our Western cultures. So that's bringing me a lot of joy, and I'm really fired up. And yeah,
I'm stoked for that. That's awesome. And I'm just thinking about how we have the South Node, so like the nodal axis in astrology moved to Pisces, Virgo. So Virgos are like really feeling the astrological shifts that are happening right now. And I'm gonna look at where Virgo actually is in your astrology chart after this, so we can kind of see where this is hitting. But yeah, it's so cool to me that this would, of course, have to do with like healing and changing how you heal people with
hmm
Virgo and everything. So I'm stoked for you, and that's awesome. So, Adam, thank you so much again for joining us. This has been a really awesome conversation.
yeah, definitely. I enjoyed it a lot.
Well, you rock. Everyone listening, you rock, and I will talk to you next time.